We've managed to get behind the scenes a bit here at EA. We're together with Daniel Erickson from Bioware, the lead writer on Star Wars: The Old Republic. We met last year, talked a bit about the lore behind the game. What's happened in during this year? What's been going on behind Star Wars: The Old Republic?
So much. The game has gelled a lot. We've had thousands of players testing it now. We're getting great feedback. The game is up and running. We've got it on the show floor now, just open. So people coming in, it's not a demo. It's just, hey, log into the game, run around. People can either play the Origin Worlds, which a bunch of people just sat down to do, or they can sit there and they can play Tatooine. We've got the speeders, which you got to see, so you can run around. Very, very cool. We've got some new companion characters we're showing, and then the behind closed doors interviews. Saw a whole bunch of movies revealing everything from the new raid system to all the cool social features and how we're doing the economy stuff. It's our launch year, so I finally get to quit for the most part saying, oh, we can't talk about that.
Of course, a lot of people on the internet, this great phenomenon, has a lot of opinions about Star Wars: The Old Republic already, even though they haven't tried it. What's the feedback been from the people that's actually been playing the game?
Very good, and we've gotten great feedback as far as things that needed changing. One of the things you'll notice when you play today is the GUI has been redesigned from scratch. They were not conflicted on whether or not they liked the GUI. They were like, no, has to go. There was a lot of stuff like that, from balance to getting groups together. That's where, if you haven't got to see yet, the multiplayer dialogue now has the holo feature where you can actually call in if you're somewhere on the other side of the world and your little hologram shows up in blue and has a conversation there. People loved the multiplayer stuff. They loved the story, but they kept saying the same thing. I want groups to be easier. I want to be able to find my friends. I want more stuff that I have to do in groups. And we listened. And this year was really a big year about multiplayer. So now for our final E3, we're sort of turning it back and saying, hey, look, remember? Core features. We've got the story. It's different. It's cool. This is what's going on. And kind of reacquainting people with the original message of the Old Republic.
Yeah, one of the things that's always been, because I've met you guys many times now, we've talked about a lot about the story. But the MMO itself has kind of been hidden behind this. We've always come back to the story. What are you going to tell us about the pure MMO features, the typical virtual world stuff in the Old Republic?
So the economy is up and running wonderfully. We've got the auction house going. We've got the crafting systems going. We've got 1,000+ people in the testing unit, so we're actually getting to see people do it. We just pulled the curtain off the end game. Right, we're showing the first of what we call them operations. It's our take on raiding. Much like flashpoints are different from dungeons, they're contextual. There's cool story stuff, great set pieces, some really exciting stuff. The big one that I think is going to just rock everybody's socks is right now in testing, it is hard to get people to do anything but play war zones. The war zones are finally running like they were intended to, and Gabe and his team did an amazing job of making slick, fast, Star Wars feeling combat.
How's development been in general? Because we've seen the game so many times, we've heard so much about it, but it seems to take a long time. And, press conference after press conference, still the same thing. Now you're closing in on end. How's development been in general, from start to now?
One of the problems with the game is just that it's so big, right? A Bioware single-player RPG is infinitesimally smaller than this, and they take a long time. There are so many areas to polish. There are so many quests, but then when you get into a online space, there are so many systems that work together in ways you didn't expect, and players want more than anything else to cheat and break your game. And that's why the testers are so good, because oh my god, you see very quickly the things you didn't anticipate. But all the work and all the polish you've seen, one of the things we keep hearing is people say, hey, this looks like a single-player game. The polish level, everything actually looks like what I would expect from a AAA normal single-player title. Well, making that level of polish all the way through the game and to the end for a game that's as big as every Bioware game put together takes the amount of polish that every Bioware game put together took. So it's a big team working really hard.
Let's talk about Endgame, because finally you've showing, as you said, the operations, you're taking rating. What can people expect when we're done, when we reach max level? Because before this, one of the comments that we got about Endgame was, well, you can always re-roll a new character. I suck at alts. I usually take one character, take it to the max level, and I stick with that character. What can I expect from Endgame? What will I get from playing constantly the same character?
Right, well, the one thing we always have to pitch for the alts, 100% new story, switch sides, you got a lot of cool stuff, right? Many Bioware RPGs. But you're the single player guy, you're like, I'm going to keep my character and I'm going to give him a die. You've got operations, you've got war zones, you've got actually some full different content that we have not talked about yet. You are still going to be earning rewards, opening things up, finding some new places to go, and having a lot of places to go and team up with your friends, and all the traditional things you would expect from an end-game content. The guys who want to stick there at the end game tend to be the people who are a little bit more traditionally MMO focused, and they're a huge core part of our audience.
But what is special about Operations? What is your take on raiding exactly?
One of the really important things was taking something that really fit in the rest of the world, not a random offshoot, not something that was storyless, and letting people all play through that story together. A huge set piece that felt like it was worthy of the raid. The same way like we're adding the heroic quests in around the worlds, which are the quests you have to have a full party, it's important that those are the most heroic things, right? We don't want to run your normal quest and then get a heroic quest to kill squirrels. The raids have to feel like, hey, here's a piece of the galaxy you didn't get to see before. One of the big questions that's always floating around for Belsavis, where we put the first operation, was you get to explore Belsavis, you get to do all this stuff, you kind of find out a little bit about the people who built the place, but really what is it there? Like, why did they feel the need to have this ridiculous, to turn a whole planet into a prison? What were they trying to hold in there? So we said, okay, that's our first raid. Our first raid is going to be the secret of Belsavis.
Yeah, the story, how do you craft, you're the lead writer, but looking at Star Wars history, as we went through last year, if you go back in the archives, you can see us geeking out totally on Star Wars history. It's very much mapped, except for perhaps between, let's say, the Old Republic games and Darth Bane. There's kind of a big blank, but all leads to Darth Bane. He ends the Sith Brotherhood. What stories can you tell, since we more or less know the end 3,000 years later?
Well, 3,000 years is a long time in history. That's like saying if we were 1,000 BC right now and we knew that we were going to end up here, well, in the middle, not so exciting. Whatever, Enlightenment, Renaissance, there's some things happened. One of the really interesting things for me is taking the two sides, and it's one of the things we decided to do with, like, you notice, so we said, hey, okay, we're going to give British accents to everybody. Everybody is going to have some form of British, Irish, Scottish, English accent if they're on the Imperial side. And people said, well, but later everybody's mixed up. And I'm like, exactly. We know the Sith Empire as it is today won't last forever, which means at some point those cultures had to have melded. So we went through and we picked things specifically from each side and said, no, this actually came from the Sith. This was a core part of the Republic. And we get to watch as those features change. And as we sort of graphed out the long story, I had to be prepared, my team had to be prepared for, hey, let's pretend this is going to be super successful, and we're going to get to write these stories for 10 years. What does the timeline look like? And as you play through the Old Republic, you're going to see a lot of hints about where it's going and how both sides are developing and really starting to change.